this is Mrs. Smeckens, and for the last several lessons, we've been working on collecting all the details we can about characters. Authors develop characters. They not only tell us what a character looks like, but they tell us what a character does, says, and thinks. As a reader, we want to be in tune to those specific details. We want to collect those details. This helps us better understand characters, their motives, and what they learn. All of this is going to help us figure out what is the theme or message to this story. In the last lesson, we did more than just collect details about a single character. We really worked on this idea of relationships because there's usually more than one character in the story. And part of characterization or development isn't just looking at that character individually, but how that character interacts with others. We realized that authors don't tell us this interaction, the relationship between characters. Readers have to infer it. So we had to kind of put clues together and look at how did one character act, speak, or feel toward another. All right, so in this lesson, I want to take the same information, what characters do, say, and think, and I want us to go even further in our understanding of characters. I want us to figure out what is the character's trait? What is the character's personality? Now, often authors don't tell you a character's personality, what they're like on the inside. The reader has to figure it out. The reader has to infer, collect these details from across the text to figure out, so who is this character? What's he really like? And again, that's going to require inferring. It's not stated in the text, usually. We have to figure it out. So this is pink because it's another type of inference. We can infer the relationship between characters or we can infer a single character's personality. We call that their character trait. Now, when we talk about character trait, a couple things to really understand, and that is it's about what the character's like on the inside. And sometimes this gets very confusing with feelings because feelings are on the inside. So let's start first with some clarification on what a trait is and what a trait is not. Okay, when we talk about personality or character traits versus feelings, one of the things to know is feelings are fleeting. They come and go. They fly in, they fly out, they fade. See all those sounds to help you try to remember? Feelings are very temporary, all right? A character can feel happy on this page and then be crying on the next page, all right? It's a feeling. That is not a trait. Traits are tried and true. Traits stay the same. A character's trait or personality is constant from the beginning of the text to the end of the text. How they are on the inside. If sometimes a friend of yours does something and another person says, "What's up with him?" and you say, "Oh, he's always like that." That's what a trait is. He's always like that. It's not just on this page, in this chapter, in this paragraph. He's always like that. That's typical for him. Tried and true. Typical. I would expect it because he's always like that. Okay, so traits don't change across the text. Feelings change, traits don't. That's a big distinction, okay? So temporary feelings, permanent traits. All right, now, as we're kind of looking at this idea of a permanent trait, a tried and true, a typical, he's always like that, then that means across the whole text, you should be able to find evidence of a character acting like that, demonstrating that personality trait. You should be able to find evidence in the beginning, evidence in the middle, evidence at the end. And remember what evidence is. Evidence of a trait is what he does, what he says, or what he thinks. It's the same evidence that helps us figure out characters, all right, and just relationships and just understand development. But if we look at certain actions, words, or thoughts, then if we're saying, yeah, he's always like that, then we should find evidence in those 3 ways throughout the whole text to back up the personality trait we're giving this character. Okay, so one other thing to keep in mind in terms of differences between feelings and traits, they're both on the inside, but traits are tried and true, always like that, all right, this character. The other way to tell the difference between feelings and traits is feelings are little words, mad, sad, glad. They're just little dinky words. Traits are bigger vocabulary words. It's not that you don't know these words. Oh, you might not know a couple of them. I'll show you a list in a minute, but it's not that you don't know these words. You don't use these words. Your go-tos are mad, sad, glad. He's nice. You just little dinky words. Okay, so feelings are these little, mad, sad, glad, angry, furious, nervous, excited. Okay, yeah, but only in this situation, only on this page, only in this scene is he feeling like that. That's going to be gone, right? Fleeting. Now let's look at the vocab of traits. All right? Traits are tried and true. Traits are personality traits. These are the same thing, synonyms for each other, okay? And authors use characterization to create characters with personality, all right, to make them real. And so they use characterization like what the character does, says, and feels. Okay, so this list, or it's several different lists, and it's not exhaustive. Oh my gosh, you could add many more. So definitely do that. Add to this list. But I did try to kind of categorize it a little bit. Curious, whimsical, carefree, playful, rambunctious, assertive, brave, bold, but also powerful, confident, reckless, noble, eloquent, respected, trustworthy, responsible, generous, thoughtful, sympathetic, protective, appreciative, humble, gullible, foolish, timid, meek, inferior, weak, vulnerable, lazy, apathetic. He doesn't care. He's indifferent. That's apathetic. Irresponsible, wise, perceptive, studious, sarcastic, arrogant, rude, disagreeable, pessimistic, stubborn, spiteful, surly, malicious, corrupt. Okay, again, you know most of these words. Most of these words are not brand new to you. They just aren't your go-tos. Our go-tos tend to be mad, sad, glad. And that is not what test questions, comprehension questions are looking for when they say, how would you describe this character? They don't mean feeling. They mean personality, because they know that's harder to figure out and requires inferring. Okay, so when we talk about personality or character traits, one of the things to realize is that characters have more than one, particularly in longer texts, all right? We've been doing a lot with short stories, legends, things we can read in short spurts of time, but particularly novels and chapter books, oh my word, there's so much about a character you pick up that the character is revealing numerous traits. Each of us have many personality traits. For example, myself. I would describe myself, Mrs. Smeckens, as energetic. And I'm not just energetic in these lessons. I'm energetic when I'm at church. I'm energetic when I'm at home. I'm energetic when I'm gardening. I just tend to do things with lots of gusto. Again, she's always like that. Okay? But I would also describe myself as fairly athletic. All right? I can dribble a ball, I can shoot a ball, I can hit a ball, I can kick a ball, I can run, I have good balance, I'm athletic. All of those are evidence that I'm athletic, okay? And I would hope that people would say, Mrs. Smeckens is dependable. When you ask her to do something, she does it. When she says she'll meet you there, she'll be there. When she says she'll make that, buy that, do that, she does it, by golly. So I would describe myself as dependable. Now, all character traits, including that list from the previous page, they're not all positive, okay? And authors do not create perfect characters, all glowing traits. No, because characters are meant to be real, like human, like the reader, and we have flaws. And so character traits aren't always positives, okay? We're all trying to grow, learn, improve. And so when Mrs. Meckens thinks about some of her less than desirable character traits, I would say one of mine is I can be loud and rambunctious. I can be a little over the top. I can, and not everybody likes that. Some people are like, just cool your jets, Meckens, cool your jets. And so I wouldn't say that that is a great thing. Definitely not all the time. You know what else? I tend to be one of those people, come on, come on, come on, let's get this done. Come on, come on, come on, let's do this. What are you doing? Let's come on. I tend to be one of those people who's impatient. That's definitely not a positive. I'm not one of those people that just kind of can wait. I like, get on it. All right, so characters have flaws just like humans. All character traits, all personalities aren't positive. But if you have that trait, you have it all the time. You demonstrate it. It's tried and true. It doesn't change. You can find evidence of that trait in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the text. Okay, so as we continue to think about character traits, I would like to kind of show you how do you go about figuring out a character's trait. And again, you can have more than one. Shorter text, characters demonstrate one or two. Longer text, you can have 8, 10, 12 character traits with evidence throughout. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to show you how you can infer, collect details, put them together to figure out a character trait. Okay, and I want to be fair. There are some texts you read and an author will just give you some personality or character traits. He'll say she is well-mannered. He'll say he is timid and shy. So they're not implying it. They're just telling you, okay? But when you have a test question and they ask, how would you describe the character? Then they on purpose chose passage where the character was not defined with a personality trait. The author implied it. And we have to figure it out. Okay, so I want to take us back to Thank You, Ma'am. Langston Hughes' Thank You, Ma'am from the previous lesson. And as you were reading through this, remember it was about Roger, the kid who tried to steal the pocketbook of Mrs. Jones, okay? And Mrs. Jones. Okay, so I want to start with Roger. Okay, so I'm going to do Roger first. And if you haven't read this, here it is on the screen. You can read it and then listen to the rest of this lesson. But the idea of going back to look at what did Roger do in this story, say in this story, think and feel in the story. All of that is what I need to figure out a personality trait that Roger possesses. Okay, and so I'm going to show you how I do that, and I'm pulling actual details from this text. Now, while I do that, I want you to be mindful of what character traits seem to come to mind that fit Roger. So I'm going to put that list of character traits back on the screen as you just kind of watch me put this together and try to make an inference. Okay, so I'm gonna use my sticky notes. I'm gonna use my inference silhouette, and I'm gonna kind of just think out loud. Okay, and I did jot down some details from the text, and I'm gonna infer right in front of you. Okay, so in the story, Thank You, Ma'am, we know that Roger ran up from behind Mrs. Jones, then he lost his balance and he fell on his backside. And when he was on his backside, Mrs. Jones kicked him right in the cedar, right in the bottom, right in the butt. Okay, so that's a reading voice detail. Okay, so now, like all readers, we don't want to just collect details, highlight. You want to highlight. What does that mean? What does that tell you about Roger? Well, it tells me he was caught. He was caught. And so, I mean, that's not a personality trait, okay? But it's gonna help me kind of think more about him and get to oh, he's like that. He's always like that. So let me point out another detail that we picked up from the story. Mrs. Jones was holding Roger by his shirt collar, remember that? And it said she dragged him down the street and through the house, and she even had him in a half Nelson for part of this, Okay, so here's this person that Roger was supposed to be robbing, and the tables have kind of turned a little bit. Roles have been reversed. Now Roger's the victim. I'm starting to think Roger's being overpowered by this large woman. The text didn't say that. That's my thinking voice saying, well, he's now kind of the victim here, and she's overpowering him. Some of this might help me figure out how would I describe Roger in terms of a character trait. Throughout the story, various times Roger said, remember, we're not just collecting what does Roger do, but also what does Roger say. We collected times when he said yes, no, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. He was using that language at different times. And so I think he's definitely, I mean, some people would say that's respectful, yes, but he's also kind of scared, isn't he? And he's, I think it said he was frightened and frail. And so he's saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It says he's frightened, he's frail. He's definitely recognizing she's overpowering him and she is an authority. I mean, he's using a respectful phrase, but I think it's more than just being respectful. I think he's scared. In fact, he kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry, lady, I'm very sorry. Okay? And so this notion of apologetic, remorseful, okay? So his personality trait is one of apologetic. He recognizes authority. He's being overpowered, though, right now. He also is all alone. Remember, he said that nobody was at home to make sure he washes his face. Nobody was at home to make him supper. So he was all alone. Okay, so here's this person who's trying to act tough, and he's all alone. He's being overpowered. And there were times that he was speechless. Do you remember when she said something? I think it was, when she said there were times in her life she wanted to have things she couldn't. And then he was kind of speechless about that. Okay. And so what did he do? He dried his face twice because he was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're telling me this. He was kind of speechless. So he's speechless. He's alone. He's overpowered. There were times at the very end when he just couldn't believe she just gave him $10. And his lips were moving, but he could hardly say anything but thank you, ma'am. And so speechless again. Overpowered, recognized her authority, apologetic. He's caught red-handed. He's totally at her mercy right now. I need to look at this list and think of a word that kind of fits. And I'm not looking in this column, curious, carefree, assertive, brave, confident. No, definitely. You know what's the opposite of confident? So I'm looking for something like he more than scared, because scared or afraid or nervous, those are feelings. So what is something that, he's, it's selfless? No, he tried to steal from her. Is he weak? Well, kind of. Look below that. Vulnerable. He's vulnerable. He goes in to do something, take a risk, and it doesn't work out. He's vulnerable. I would say that is one of his personality traits, one of his character traits. And I have evidence of his vulnerability all throughout the story. Remember, character traits are tried and true, beginning, middle, and end of the story. You should be able to find evidence, beginning, middle, and end of the story to back that up. And I think I can. All right, let's try this with the carpet fitter. Let's try this with Eddie from the carpet fitter. And I'm going to remove all these details because, as you know, these are only relevant to the passage, thank you, ma'am. So they won't help us. And we're going to think about Eddie in the carpet fitter, okay? Now, I'm going to, again, reference some details ahead of time here, and you tell me what you're thinking, and we'll keep that list up there of what traits throughout the text that Eddie might be demonstrating. Okay, so remember when he said, blast, I've done it again. I have done this once before. And what did we know he did? Left the cigarettes underneath the carpet. Okay, so what does that tell you about Eddie and his workmanship? He's done this before. Yeah, he's made big mistakes like this before. This is not the first. He's not very good at his job. All right. He's been doing it for 10 years, but he's not very good at it. Okay. Let's talk about the fact that after he realized what had happened, he was determined not to spend another 2 hours in this house fixing his problem. He was determined not to fix it. Go that extra mile. What does that tell you about him? Yeah, he's into shortcuts. Yeah, questionable work ethic, right? Potentially unethical now that we know how the story ends. Okay, this is all giving us insight. We're looking at each detail we collect. Another detail from that passage said that he carefully placed the coffee table right there so no one would see the spot where he'd been hammering. So, what does that tell you about him? He's sneaky, secretive. Okay. So, does he ever tell? Do we know? Does he ever tell Mrs. B that I think I might know where Armand is? Or at least we don't have any evidence. We have no evidence that he actually told the truth. Okay. Or at least that it wasn't cigarettes because he saw him in his vehicle. He knows it wasn't cigarettes he was hammering. So we can assume, no, he did not tell her the truth. Okay, so let's look at this list. Okay, let's pick a category. Funny, cheerful, friendly, no. Brave, bold, fearless, no. Noble, eloquent, respectful, no. Generous, trusting, gentle, protective, no. All right, insecure, timid, are we in any of these? Okay, vulnerable, cautious. Look down here. Some people would say lazy, but he went that extra mile. He solved his problem. So I don't know if he's so much lazy as much as irresponsible, right? Irresponsible. And again, this idea of that's just one possible trait Eddie possesses. Okay, it's not like there's an answer. His trait is, we could come up with evidence to say that Eddie is resourceful. He problem solved. He's resourceful. He figured out, how to pass the time by daydreaming about playing soccer this weekend. He figured out how to not have to, pull up the carpet for 2 hours. He came up with another way. He was thinking outside of the box, right? So some people might say he's resourceful. There's no one answer. When we talk about character traits or personality, the key is that for it to truly be a character trait, it has to be proven. There has to be evidence based on actions, words, and thoughts throughout the whole text. Character traits don't change. Okay? If you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, here's what I would have you do next. I would have you look through the notes you took from the previous lesson on Thank You, Ma'am from Langston Hughes. And remember, I asked you to do the do, say, and think. You could either have done it in highlighting annotation, or you lifted it out and you made notes on a separate sheet of paper. But I really wanted you to track the details of Mrs. Jones, okay? While I did character trait, inference, thinking, and work for Roger, I want you now to infer a character trait for Mrs. Jones. I want you to go back to your own details, and I'll give you the passage again too, okay? But go back to your own notes of what Mrs. Jones did, said, and thought, and then I want you to collect details, actual words and phrases from the text of things she did, of things she said, of things she thought and felt. And just like I did, I want you to tell me, well, what do you think that detail means? What's your thinking voice telling you about that? And then I want you to kind of add these up and come up with a character trait from the list. I'll give you the list from the list that you would say, I would describe Mrs. Jones as blank. All right? So if you were in Mrs. Smecken's class, you'd be inferring a character trait for Mrs. Jones from Thank You, Ma'am. But your teacher might have a better idea.